How's everybody doing out there? Peace and blessings to the hearers and doers of the Lord's word. I want to go ahead and get into this special message from the Lord, another biblical deep dive. And this one is going to be about Pontius Pilate. Pilate was under Julius Caesar. Pilate was the one who okayed the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, but Pilate tried to avoid it at every cost. Pilate tried to stay out of the cutthroat business of the Jews at all costs. But see, I'm gonna read. You have multiple accounts from different authors in the Bible, multiple eyewitness accounts of Pilate's actions. You understand? And I'm gonna give you the in-depth look of what they were doing, how the Jews were trying to manipulate Pilate. This is how a lot of people today, they try to manipulate leaders, and like you got money being dropped off. You have people try to manipulate politicians and leaders by their popularity, by saying, look, you're not going to get voted in. We're not going to vote for you, or we're not going to do this. They were doing the same thing to Pontius Pilate so they could be able to unlawfully take Jesus Christ's life. That's what they were doing. But see, Pilate was better than a lot of the Jews. He wasn't trying to hear that stuff. And let me give it to you. Let's go ahead and give you Bible. This is firsthand accounts here. It said Jesus stands before Pilate, and this is in the book of John, chapter 18, verse 28. Jesus' trial before Caiaphas ended in the early hours of the morning. That was a Jewish leader. So they had a trial with the Jewish leader, and then it ended early in the morning. Next, he was taken to the palace of the Roman governor, which is Pontius Pilate. His accusers wouldn't go in themselves, for that would defile them. Look at the strange customs they had. Like, this is what Jesus told them. They worried about being defiled by going into places, touching certain things, eating certain stuff. But on the inside, they spirit, they going in here trying to get an innocent man killed. You worried about not being defiled by going into a place and touching stuff, but you willing to get an innocent man killed. It's the same way with a lot of people today. You have a lot of church people who try to call themselves being so holier than thou. You can't come into church with no dirty clothes. You gotta have a suit on. You gotta do this. If I'm looking at you, if you look like you a thug, or you got some of this on, you got a certain attire. Oh man, you can't be a part of this group. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, bro, you on the inside, you're wicked. But you just sit in this church building all day and thinking that, you're going to be good with God. But see, you don't have no real relationship with the Creator. And that's dangerous. When you thinking that you right and you don't have no real relationship. All of these Jews thought that they were doing all of these stupid customs, keeping the Passover laws, doing all this stupid stuff. But they didn't know that they were crucifying the living God. That's how far removed they were from God. They didn't have a relationship with him, so they didn't know him. They didn't recognize him when he's staring them in their face. But yet, in turn, they didn't want to go into the Roman governor's palace, so they would defile themselves. So Pilate, the governor, went out to them and asked, "What is your charge against the man?" He went outside of his palace to speak to him, and this is in the Bible. This is chapter 18, verse 29. He said, "What is your charge against this man? What is you accusing him of doing?" They gonna snappy retort, "We wouldn't have arrested him if he weren't a criminal." That's what they retorted. "We wouldn't have arrested him if he wasn't a criminal." Then Pilate said, "Well, then take him away and judge him yourself by your own laws." "We want him crucified," they demanded, "and your approval is required." To fulfill the prediction concerning the method of Jesus' execution, this was all predicted. He had to be crucified, but they had to have Pilate's removal. So Pilate went back to the palace and called for Jesus to come to him. He asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus said, "King as you use the word, or as the Jews use it?" Jesus asked. And then Pilate said, "Am I a Jew? Your own people and chief priests brought you here. What have you done?" Jesus answered, said, I am not an earthly king. If I were, my followers would have fought when you tried to arrest me, when I was arrested by the Jews, by the Jewish leaders, I mean. But my kingdom is not of the world. And Pilate replied, but you are a king then. And Jesus said, yes, I was born for that purpose, and I came to bring truth to the world. All who love the truth are my followers. And then Pilate exclaimed, what is truth? Let me stop there. Because this is the problem today. Pilate was, and there's nothing new under the sun. Through Pilate's and teachers and Roman teachers, they had, they had many philosophies. All of these the same way it is now. Too much learning to make you foolish, because people are just following one thing one day, then they following one thing the next day, they following one thing the next day. Now all of this stuff doesn't lead to the truth. You understand? So Pilate, in his teaching, he's thinking truth is subjective. That is a very foolish mindset. Because you are not a grounded person. And that's how a lot of people think today. Listen to me. Jesus Christ said, all who love the truth are my followers. And then Pilate said, what is truth? Then he went out again to the people and told them he's not guilty of any crime. But you have a custom of asking me of releasing someone from prison each year at the Passover. So if you want me to, I'll release the king of the Jews. This is how Pilate was trying to maneuver. Man, Pilate was making every maneuver he could to try to release Jesus Christ. He didn't want that on his hands. He knew he was innocent. Because Pilate was using logic. He was using logic to be like, well, I don't even know why you brought him here. This ain't the type of dude, but you got Barabbas in here cutting throats, stealing and wheeling and dealing. You know what I'm saying? And so he said, look, if you want me to, I'll release the king of the Jews per your custom. The Jews screamed back and said, no, not this man, but Barabbas, the robber. Give him back to us. That's again telling for people today. A lot of my people, black people, we champion criminals, murderers, drug dealers, and thugs. That's why all of the rappers are super popular. And it's not just my people. People around the world champion these people. They look at these people as, as cool, as you could say, you know what I mean? Until it spill over into their backyard. And then it's not looked at as cool anymore. But these people, like, you got people locked up right now, rappers, and you got people, everybody got t-shirts on talking about free them, free this and free that. You don't know, even with the Brittany Griner chick, you talking about people talking about free her and free this. Like, but you got people who being persecuted for just speaking their beliefs. Nobody mentions them. Have you noticed that? They're just gone. Like, no one mentions them or says anything. But you got people, like I say, people love to. Why are you talking about free somebody who done committed a crime? Is that fair to the person whom they committed the crime against? You understand? Think about what you're talking about. But see, the Jews didn't want Jesus. They didn't want the living God. They didn't want the righteous, leader coming out there telling them to repent and showing them the way to God. No, they wanted Barabbas. So chapter 19, John chapter 19, Pilate said, all right, so he just Pilate went ahead with him, and he laid open Jesus' back with a leaded whip. The soldiers made a crown of thorns and placed it on his head and robed him in a royal purple robe. Hail, the King of the Jews. They mocked Jesus and struck Jesus with their fists. So after that, Pilate went outside again and said, I'm going to bring him out to you now, but understand clearly, I find him not guilty. So Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, and Pilate said, behold the man. And as soon as they saw him, the chief priests of the Jewish officials began yelling, crucify, crucify. And Pilate said, you crucify him. I find him not guilty. See, Pilate brought him out. Jesus, he beat Jesus. He had him beat. He had his back laid all open with that lead whip. You saw that on Passion of the Christ. This is how much Jesus suffered for you. This is how much Jesus suffered for me and you. No matter what you say, no matter how you want to live your life right now, and you want to close your heart and mind off to these things, no matter what you say, Jesus Christ lived and died for you. That was his purpose, not only for the disciples then, he was doing it for the people now, the believers now. They replied, Jesus came out wearing a crown of thorns and a purple robe. And Pilate said, behold the man. At the sight of him, the chief priests and Jewish officials began yelling, crucify, crucify. Pilate said, you crucify him. I find him not guilty. They replied, by our laws, he ought to die because he called himself the Son of God. When Pilate heard this, he was more frightened than ever. And he took Jesus back to the palace again and asked, where are you from? But Jesus gave him no answer. Jesus gave him the silent treatment at that time. See, because Pilate was now shook. Pilate don't even know they don't have concepts of that. You understand? But Pilate in his heart is still human. They not taught that. You know what I'm saying? They Roman law, they everywhere with their religions and pagan beliefs and all of this stuff. But every human being in their heart is convicted by God. So Pilate was scared when they told him that he called himself the Son of God. He took Jesus back, tried to probe some more, like, man, where are you from? But Jesus gave no answer. You won't talk to me? Pilate demanded. Don't you realize I have the power to release or crucify you? Then Jesus said, you would have no power at all over me unless it were given to you from above. So those who brought me to you have the greater sin. You see how Jesus is playing this? Do you listen? Did you just hear what I said? Jesus Christ told Pilate that you wouldn't have any power of leadership unless my Father in heaven had given it to you already. God gave Pilate the power. God knew he was going to be there. God appointed him governor. God appoints all leaders the same way he appointed Pharaoh. God is the one who does it. He rises them through the ranks. He maneuvers it, manipulates it, keeps them alive. He does it. So Jesus told them that the greater sin is on the people who brought me to you. Pilate already said he found the man not guilty. Pilate trying to duck and dip and get out of that. He don't want nothing to do with that. But they keep trying to reel him in. So Pilate tried to release him. But the Jewish leaders told him, if you release this man, you are no friend of Caesar's. And anyone who declares himself a king is a rebel against Caesar. You see how they turn it? See, the Jews are now flipping and turning it around the board. You can't, just because he called himself the Son of God, and they can't prove he was doing many miracles in front of them. You know what I'm saying? Many people believed if they would have left him to his own devices, many more people would have believed on Jesus Christ. That would have been God on the earth. But see, that wasn't the time for that, because when God is on the earth living with us and he returns, that's going to be paradise. That's going to be, ain't going to be no more wars and ain't going to be no more suffering and things like that. That's further down the line. That wasn't supposed to happen at that time. Jesus Christ, God had to give his holy life on that cross. He had to give the life of a human being. He had to live a life of a human being and die the life of a human being, because the blood sacrifice is what appeases God of the sin that human beings have committed. I know you may not get that blood sacrifice. That's what it has to be, blood. And God did that with a holy life. He did that with himself. So now he reconciled everyone who believe on Jesus Christ to himself. So that's why you can't say it's because of me, I get into heaven and my works, or I can go do this, I can go blow up 10,000 people. No, it's not because of anything you do. It's because of the relationship you have with Jesus Christ. When God look at you, he need to see the image of his son. He need to see the image. And that go for men and women. You need to be trying to do his, and that just, all that comes with is obedience. That's it. That's all it comes with. I know you don't have to, I'm trying to make things simple for you. It's obedience. You have to obey. So again, man, you see how Pilate was doing them. He was doing everything he could to try to get around that. But see, the Jews switched things up. Now it's because he called himself a king. And if he does that, that'll make him a rebel of Caesar. But Jesus Christ, like he told Pilate, my king ain't of the earth. But see, at these words, Pilate brought Jesus out to them again and sat down at the judgment bench on the stone platform. And Pilate said, here is your king. Away with him. See, Pilate sat down and said, here is your king. Away with him, they yell. Away with him. Crucify him. What? Pilate said, crucify your king? We have no king but Caesar, the chief priest shouted back. Then Pilate gave Jesus to him to be crucified. He finally just was like, look, man, I can't do nothing. Even Pilate, he said, what? Crucify your king? Pilate was even trying to use reverse psychology on them. You know what I'm saying? These are things he didn't have to do. Well, you got to understand this. Like, he could have just been like, look, screw it. Let me go ahead and let me give you something else that Pilate did. After he had died, after Jesus was crucified, where there was on a signboard, it was written in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek, so many people could read it. It said, the sign read, the King of the Jews. The chief priest said to Pilate, change it from the King of the Jews, to he said, I am the King of the Jews. But you know what? After Pilate had finally went along with their foolishness, Pilate replied, I have written what I have written, and it stays exactly as it is. So these Jewish leaders trying to come to him like, man, change this from the King of the Jews to he said he was the King of the Jews. Pontius Pilate said, I wrote what I wrote, and I ain't changing nothing. How about that? What you gonna do? Nothing, exactly. So that's what he did. So Pilate had a lot of contempt for them, man. You could tell Pilate was looking at them like they was a bunch of weirdo lunatics. They was a bunch of ungrateful peasants. Like, that's how he was looking at them. He was looking at them like they was a bunch of ungrateful weirdos. And he knew about more about themselves than they knew. You know what I'm saying? More. It seemed like Pontius Pilate was closer to God than they were. Even though they claimed to be in the truth, man. They had Jesus Christ with them for the longest. They didn't even know who he was. But Pontius Pilate, and this is just in the book of John. Let me go ahead and give you a little bit more for we in this. This is the account from Luke. This is in the book of Luke, chapter 23. Then the entire council took Jesus over to Pilate, the governor. They began at once accusing him. This fellow has been leading our people to ruin by telling them not to pay their taxes to the Roman government and by claiming he is our Messiah, a king. See, now they were lying on him. They were so desperate. They wanted him dead. They were doing everything that, they just did not want to see Jesus Christ alive anymore. They couldn't stand it because that light, we all know this even from today. The light that when you see people, who are followers of Christ, they're going to be hated just like Jesus Christ was, because that light is contrary to the world. Everything that Jesus Christ tells, the death of the flesh, the way of living for God, it's all contrary to the flesh. And contrary to the world, and when you give that out there to the world, it's like a light you shine on them. They makes them uncomfortable. It convicts the spirit. And it basically exercises the demons that's within people. You understand? And they fight against that. So Pilate asked Jesus, are you their Messiah, their king? Jesus replied, it is as you say. It's as you say. Because Jesus is their Messiah and their king. He lied not one time. Then Pilate turned to the chief priest and said, so that isn't a crime. Then they became desperate. He's causing riots against the government everywhere he goes. All over Judea and from Galilee to Jerusalem. That's weird behavior. That's that stank. See, you see people doing that today. If a person come out and he preaching the gospel, or even just a person is just out with a camera recording, when they doing that, in order to get them arrested for doing a constitutionally protected act, in order to get them arrested, or in order to get them, messed with, or you get people trying to say that they inciting riots, or they disturbing the peace, or like, I'm not disturbing your peace. You need your peace is within you. You need to go and do whatever you need to do. Your peace is, wherever you at, and wherever you have within you, wherever you moving, it's you cultivated. If a person not talking to you directly, you know what I'm saying, it's no way they could be disturbing your peace. Like, people will say that for a person just recording in public. That's ridiculous. That just go to show you how people lie and make up things just to get their way and get people arrested. And the cops not there to be nobody's militia. That's for damn sure. They not there to be nobody's militia, nobody's feeling police or nothing like that. You understand? So this is like Pilate told him, man, what he did ain't a crime. But they try to flip it and make it seem like Jesus was causing riots and doing a bunch of stuff. And that was never the case, man. So Pilate, and this is in the book of Luke, chapter 22. This is 23, verse 13. Let's go to Luke chapter 23, verse 13. Then Pilate called together the chief priests and other Jewish leaders, along with the people, and announced his verdict. You brought this man to me, accusing him of leading a revolt against the Roman government. Lie. I have examined him thoroughly on this point and find him innocent. Herod came to the same conclusion and sent him back to us. Nothing this man has done calls for the death penalty. I will therefore have him scourged with leaded thongs and release him. But now a mighty roar came from the crowd, like with one voice, like they just all screamed and kill him and release Barabbas to us. Pilate argued with him, for he wanted to release Jesus, but they shouted, crucify him. Once more, for the third time, 3 times, like Pilate's done it, 3 times is a charm. Pilate, for the third time, Pilate demanded, why? What crime has he committed? I have found no reason to sentence him to death. I will therefore scourge him and let him go. I'll at least punish him, even though I shouldn't even do that. I don't have no reason to lay hands on the man, but I'll do that and let him go. But they shouted louder and louder for Jesus' death, and their voices prevailed. So Pilate sentenced Jesus to die as they demanded, and he released Barabbas, the man in prison for insurrection and murder. Yeah, that's what Barabbas was in there for. He was actually in there for the things that they accused Jesus of. At their request, he go ahead and released him, and he delivered Jesus over to them to do as they would. Let's be real. Pilate finally gave in to them, and he released Jesus to them to be killed. He sentenced him to death to them. But he did try to do everything he could do, but out of fear of the people, fear of their manipulation tactics, fear of them trying to talk about, making him an enemy of Caesar and all this other stuff. They manipulated a whole bunch of things in that situation. The Jews were very manipulative, and that's why God punished their butt at every instance and every chance he can get, because they, his people are very messed up and very haughty. Pontius tried. That's all I can say. He tried, as a man, even a man who not even a believer, who was raised in the gospel. Like I said, the Romans aren't the chosen people of the Lord. The Jews were. But he tried everything he could humanly possible to try to maneuver through their freaking tactics to release Jesus. He did not want to kill him. So with that being said, hey man, Pontius Pilate has a special place, in the Bible for that reason. And with that being said, I just hope you enjoyed this message. Peace and blessings to the hearers and doers of the Lord's word. Why don't you be a person like Pontius Pilate, man? If you're a leader, if you're in leadership, you're a lawyer, you're something like that. Don't be crucifying innocent men just for the fear of the people or for social media or for something like that. Nah, man, you go to bat and you do the Lord's work. You know what I'm saying? You get justice, man. You get to the bottom of justice, no matter if it's hard. If you're a police officer, you uphold the law, uphold justice, what you stood for, and uphold your relationship with the Creator. Get a relationship with the Creator, and he'll teach you. how to move, the things that he approves of, the things that are, that are becoming of a godly, of a righteous person. He'll fulfill that within you. So, hopefully you can understand that from the story that I gave you, the topic that we were on. Pontius Pilate, man, he tried. You understand? And some of us don't try. Like, you would probably, a lot of people would just go with the crowd. That's the easy thing to do. I don't want to be stoned. I don't want to look like I'm with them. Oh, let's just go with the crowd, man. No, you need to be the leader who stands up and be like, look, I find this man innocent. I find no fault in him. Pilate told them that, but they still wanted him crucified. So with that being said, peace and blessings again to the hearers and doers of the Lord's word. Special shout out to the brothers and sisters who are sealed in Christ. This is The Awakening. I'm gone.